It is officially the end of an era for one major portion of PlayStation's life with the PlayStation 3, Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, and The Last of Us on PlayStation 3. Their multiplayer servers are officially going offline. I want to talk all about this because this is really the end of an era for a lot of people. I remember going back to Uncharted 2 being so excited for that game, single player component, and then the multiplayer just shocking everyone. Uncharted 3 was amazing. Can't say enough stuff about The Last of Us. I want to just go over all three of those games, what the PlayStation 3 era was really encompassed by, because I think with these three games going offline, we could really close the book on the PlayStation 3 and look back at it as a console as a whole. Maybe I'll even do an entire video on that. Again, it's the end of a significant portion of PlayStation's life with Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, and The Last of Us going offline today. This is accompanied by Drive Club actually being delisted from the PlayStation Store, and that game is going to have its servers switched off early next year. We've known about that for a little bit. However, in the case of this, Uncharted 2 Among Thieves, Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception, and The Last of Us all having their plugs pulled on online multiplayer kind of says, hey, we are done with the PlayStation 3. It is officially over. I mean, you could go back to 2013 and say the era of the PlayStation 3 was over then when the PlayStation 4 was released. But nonetheless, it would persist a little bit, and people were still talking about PlayStation 3 games. Now with us nearing the end of the PlayStation 4's life and going into the release of the PlayStation 5 next year, I think we can officially say, yes, the PlayStation 3 is a thing of the past. But man, Uncharted 2, going back to that game first, that was probably the first game that really started to turn the tide for the PlayStation 3. Because I don't know if you guys remember, early on for the PlayStation 3, it was not a good look. $599 US is one of the iconic moments of E3 history. But it was iconic for all of the wrong reasons, because that announcement really paved the way for the PlayStation 3 struggling for a few years. 2006 when it was launched, 2007 as its first major year, not good years for the PlayStation 3, although 2007 did bring with it Ratchet & Clank Tools of Destruction as well as Uncharted 1. Those games were exceptionally good, but people were not buying into the PlayStation 3 at that point. June of 2008 brought the release of Metal Gear Solid 4, and things really started to change with that game. I remember going into GameStop the day Metal Gear Solid 4 was released and people were picking up PlayStation 3s alongside Metal Gear Solid 4. That was definitely a system selling exclusive, but really, things got kicked into overdrive in 2009. Why is that? Killzone 2 in February of 09, Infamous in May of 09, and then the fall was absolutely crazy. We talk about how the PlayStation 4 is getting one major exclusive this fall. Well, how about the fall of 2009 where you had three major exclusives? Ratchet & Clank Future, A Crack in Time, Demon's Souls, as well as the game we're going to talk about, Uncharted 2. And I remember E3 of 2009 as well, seeing Uncharted 2, seeing that helicopter come down, jaws were on the ground. Uncharted 2 was a visual masterclass at that time, and everybody was really going into the release of Uncharted 2 thinking about the game's incredible single-player campaign. Uncharted 1 had an awesome single-player campaign. Uncharted 2 is going to have an awesome single-player campaign. They threw out the idea of, oh, there's going to be a multiplayer attached to it as well, and I remember multiplayer beta attached to the release of Infamous, I believe. All of this is off the cuff, so I'm sorry if some of it is a little bit inconsistent with what actually happened, but I believe the Uncharted 2 multiplayer beta was attached to Infamous, much like Halo 3 was attached to Crackdown. Unfortunately, Uncharted 2 not as big of a mover as a game like Halo 3, especially because multiplayer was a brand new thing for Uncharted 2, but I remember playing the multiplayer beta of Uncharted 2 and being pleasantly surprised. I was like, man, this could actually turn out to be really good. And then came the release of Uncharted 2. Of course, the single-player component, absolutely mind-blowing. One of the best single-player campaigns out of a game I think I've ever played. And going back to Uncharted 2, many still go back and look at Uncharted 2 as the best game, not only on the PlayStation 3, maybe as a PlayStation exclusive as a whole, and many would say Uncharted 2 is the best game out of the four mainline Uncharted titles. I'm kind of partial to Uncharted 4. I think Uncharted 4 is kind of getting a little forgotten about of how high quality that game is from a storytelling standpoint, gameplay standpoint. It is just at an extremely high level, but I will concede that Uncharted 2 is an incredible game, and if you do want to peg it above Uncharted 4, I will hold nothing against you. And it was just an incredible experience all around. I remember that trifecta of Uncharted 2, Crack in Time, and Demon's Souls, and people were like, alright, bar none, PlayStation 3 has the best exclusives that you could buy, because remember, at that time, Xbox was really going to the wayside. I remember like the Kinect era kicking off, and 2009 was just not a very good year for Xbox 360 exclusives, and then you just saw incredible exclusive after incredible exclusive on the PS3, Uncharted 2 really capping things off in 09, and that spelled a really good story for the future of the PS3. 2011 brought with it Uncharted 3, and in my personal opinion, I did not think Uncharted 3 was as good as Uncharted 2, but Uncharted 2 set the bar so insanely high that for Uncharted 3 to be a better game, that would be a Herculean effort, and Uncharted 3 was still a tremendous game. The single player was of high quality, just don't think it was as good as Uncharted 2, but even if you want to peg Uncharted 3 above Uncharted 2, that's why these games were so incredible, because they were all of such high quality. I think with Uncharted 2, what it had going for it was the surprise factor. Like, we knew Uncharted 1 was a good game. I'm telling you, nobody was expecting Uncharted 2 to be as amazing as it was. It really caught a lot of people off guard, and then you threw in that incredible multiplayer component as well, and it was just like, what the hell? Uncharted 2 was going to be good. We didn't expect it to be this good. And going into Uncharted 3, it just had that heightened sense of expectations going into it. That, yes, it didn't have that surprise factor element, but the game was still excellent and the multiplayer was great as well. Then The Last of Us was the game that really concluded the PlayStation 3's life. I know Gran Turismo 6 as an exclusive came out later as well, but The Last of Us was that last major game for the PlayStation 3, and that was the game that, in my opinion, to many people jumping on board to the PlayStation 4, kind of closed the book on the PS3 in terms of exclusives. I know GTA 5 came out a few months later, but in terms of big budget exclusives, The Last of Us was really that game, and again, Naughty Dog outdid themselves. In the case of all three of these games, I haven't even mentioned that they're all Naughty Dog titles, so kind of timely for them to all go offline at the same time, but The Last of Us was an amazing game as well, and obviously, it's become one of the more iconic games in the entire library of PlayStation, which is saying a lot because look at the library PlayStation has, but there's a reason why The Last of Us Part 2 is one of the most anticipated games of 2020 alongside like Cyberpunk. But given the high quality level of The Last of Us, that's really what set the table for The Last of Us Part 2 to be as anticipated as it is. Now, The Last of Us's multiplayer component's a little bit interesting because honestly, I played the single player component of The Last of Us first, and while playing that game, obviously I was invested into the single player portion, and I was like, man, the single player is amazing, story's amazing, visuals are amazing, all that good stuff. But I was really wondering, there's the multiplayer component that I haven't checked out yet. How is this gameplay going to translate to the multiplayer? And it did translate very well. In the case of Uncharted 2, I don't think I liked The Last of Us's multiplayer as much as Uncharted 2, but it was still rather engaging, and I did invest quite a bit of time into it. It just, from my personal standpoint, wasn't that long-lasting experience that Uncharted 2 honestly was for me. I played Uncharted 2's multiplayer for a long time, and I can't say the same about The Last of Us. However, objectively speaking, I think quality-wise, it had a good multiplayer as well, and from a personal standpoint, Uncharted is amazing, but The Last of Us, from a campaign standpoint, is ahead of all of the Uncharted games. That is just my personal opinion. Maybe Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us go back and forth. I haven't played The Last of Us in quite a while at this point. I played through the remastered version, but that was what, all the way back in 2014. Uncharted 4 a little bit fresher in my mind. We can go and have that debate for a very long time, but with all three of these games having their multiplayer servers going offline, that is kind of a little unfortunate, but nonetheless, we still have Uncharted 4 alive on the PlayStation 4. I believe The Last of Us Remastered still has its multiplayer alive, and really, who's playing these games on the PlayStation 3 anymore? I'm sure there's a select few that really loved Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3, because I don't believe the multiplayer was brought in with the Nathan Drake collection. That's why, as good as Uncharted multiplayer was, it's unfortunate that we didn't get something like the Master Chief collection, where you encompassed all of these Uncharted games, you took all of the maps, or whatever the case may be, you offered all of the multiplayer, you offered all of the single player as well, and then you had that definitive experience. Hey Sony, maybe that would be a pretty good idea on the PlayStation 5. I don't know, it's a pretty easy license to print money on the PS5, although there are so many licenses to print money, whether it be a Ratchet & Clank Future Collection, whether it be an Infamous Collection, those games would all sell so well. Everybody really looking back on the PlayStation 3, there were so many incredible exclusives, and I'm happy that a lot of those games are going to have some longevity attached to them because they did get remastered versions. However, give me that Uncharted Definitive Collection with the multiplayers all attached. Give me that Killzone 2 and 3 collection on the PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5, because Killzone 2, man, I loved Uncharted 2's multiplayer, but Killzone 2 was another level for me. Ratchet Future Collection, Infamous 1 and 2 were tremendous. Ni no Kuni is getting remastered later this month, and the PlayStation 3 just offered so many incredible games that it's just fun to go back and look to it, even talking about it for 10 minutes or so. Really, we've only highlighted 3 games that are as impactful and important as Uncharted 2, 3, and The Last of Us were to the PlayStation 3's life. There were so many more incredible other games that I just had to quickly gloss over, whether it be a Ratchet Future Tools of Destruction, an Uncharted 1, a Metal Gear Solid 4. Hey, I'll even talk about Lair for a little bit that Sony had invested so much into, and it was an absolute train wreck. But then there's a game like Folklore that was an early PlayStation 3 title, and it was so good, and no one played it, and no one is ever going to go back and play it unless we get a remastered version of that. So at this point, I'm just rambling, but that's going to conclude this video. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Any PlayStation 3 memories, any memories attached to Uncharted 2, 3, and The Last of Us, let me hear it in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.